The night was colder than anything the human had ever felt. Snow fell without mercy, carried by winds that cut through his broken suit. He staggered across the endless white field, each step sinking deep into the freezing ground. The crash had left him with no supplies, no fire, and no shelter. The wreck of his small ship was burning far behind him, a faint orange glow swallowed by the storm. Every breath he took turned into sharp ice that stung his lungs. His body shook, his vision blurred, and his lips were so dry they almost cracked. He thought to himself that this might be the last night of his life. The silence around him was not peaceful, it was terrifying. The storm howled, and sometimes he thought he heard low growls carried by the wind. He tightened his hands into fists, but they were numb and heavy. The world felt empty, yet he knew he was not alone. Something unseen was moving out there, watching, waiting. He stumbled, fell to his knees, and for a moment, he wanted to just stay down. The snow was soft, almost like a bed, and his eyes wanted to close. But then, he remembered Earth, the faces of people he left behind, and he forced himself to stand. His boots dragged in the snow as he searched for a shadow, a rock, anything that could block the storm. His mind spun with panic, and hunger stabbed at his belly like knives. The cold was winning, every second slower than the last. Then, through the wall of snow, he saw something, movement. At first, he thought it was another hallucination, just his mind breaking under the frost. But the figure grew clearer, walking with calm steps as if the storm meant nothing. Tall, graceful, and glowing faintly with soft blue light that traced across her skin. An alien woman, unlike any he had ever seen before. Her eyes caught his, and in them he saw both sharpness and sadness. Her silver hair floated slightly in the frozen wind, yet her body did not shiver. She stopped a few feet away, her presence both frightening and comforting. The human opened his mouth, but only a dry cough came out. She tilted her head, studying him as if weighing his worth. Then she leaned closer, her voice calm but heavy. "For a warm drink," she whispered. "I'll take care of you, human." The words shook him more than the cold. He blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. Why would she offer help to him, a stranger, maybe even an enemy? Her glowing hand reached out, but she did not touch him. It was as if she wanted him to make the choice, to accept her strange promise or fall into the snow and never rise again. The human's thoughts raced. This could be a trap, the drink could be poison, the care could be death. But his body was too weak to refuse, and his heart felt a strange pull toward her. He whispered back with shaking lips, Why help me?" Her eyes narrowed, but there was no answer, only silence broken by the storm. For a long moment they stared at each other. One human, lost and desperate. One alien, glowing in the frozen dark. The storm roared around them, but in that instant the world felt smaller. Only the two of them existed in that white, endless night. His knees gave out again, and this time he could not rise. The alien woman stepped closer, her shadow falling over him. Her warmth touched him before her hands did, strange energy flowing from her skin. She caught his arm, steadying him with surprising strength. "Come," she said simply, her voice carrying no anger, no kindness, just command. He let himself be guided, half walking, half dragging his frozen body. The storm swallowed their figures, leaving only the trail of their steps in the snow. The human did not know where she was taking him. He did not know if he would live to see morning, but he knew one thing. The frozen night had not killed him yet. Something even more mysterious had claimed his fate, and her glowing eyes told him that his life was about to change forever. The human followed her into the storm, his legs heavy, his breath broken. The alien woman walked with a steady pace, her glowing skin lighting the snow like a lantern. Every step he took sank deep, but her footprints were light, almost floating on the ice. The storm grew louder, yet around her it seemed weaker, as if the wind dared not touch her. He wondered if she was guiding him to safety, or to his death. Last, they reached a crack in the frozen cliffs, a hidden opening almost invisible to the eye. She pressed her hand against the stone, and faint blue symbols glowed where her fingers touched. The wall trembled, and part of the cliff slid open with a grinding sound. Warm air spilled out, wrapping him like a blanket, and for the first time since the crash, he felt life return. To his bones, she stepped inside without a word, and he forced his weak body to follow. The cave was nothing like the icy wasteland outside. Crystal pillars rose from the floor, glowing softly in colors of green and blue. Pools of steaming water bubbled, filling the air with mist. The heat soaked into his skin, making his frozen muscles ache as they thawed. The human stumbled to his knees, his body giving in to exhaustion. But the alien woman did not help him this time. She only watched, her glowing eyes unblinking. She moved to a stone platform where carved cups rested. She filled one with steaming liquid from a crystal basin, the scent strong and bittersweet. When she handed it to him, her hand hovered close but never touched his skin. The human stared at the drink, the steam curling into the air. His throat ached for it. His body screamed for warmth. But deep in his mind, one thought whispered, "What if this was poison? What if this was the end?" He lifted the cup slowly, his shaking hands making the liquid tremble. The alien woman leaned close, her voice a soft whisper, "Drink, human, or the cold will finish what it began." Her tone was calm, but there was an edge, like a blade hidden under silk. He met her gaze, searching for any sign of kindness or cruelty. Her eyes were unreadable, full of memories he could not see. At last, he pressed the cup to his lips. The taste was sharp, burning his mouth, yet warm and rich. It slid down his throat like fire and honey mixed together. His chest filled with heat, his fingers tingled as life returned to them. The drink spread through his body like a second heart, pumping warmth into his veins. For the first time since the crash, he felt he might survive. He coughed, gasped, and laughed weakly, almost crying with relief. The alien woman did not smile. She only studied him closely, as if every reaction mattered. "Why?" he whispered with a hoarse voice. "Why save me?" Her face hardened, and for a moment, she looked like stone. Finally, she spoke. "Do not mistake this for mercy, human. This is a bargain." Her words cut through him, leaving him colder than the storm outside. "What kind of bargain?" he asked, forcing himself to sit straighter. Her glowing mark shifted across her skin, pulsing like veins of light. "You owe me now, and I do not forgive debts," she said. The cave fell into silence, broken only by the bubbling of hot springs. The human's mind raced. He was alive, yes. But at what price? Was he her prisoner now? Her servant? Or something worse? The alien woman finally sat across from him, her posture regal, her voice steady. "You will rest here, you will eat, you will drink, but you will also obey." He clenched his fists, anger mixing with gratitude. But he could not deny her. Without her, he would already be frozen and buried under snow. The human leaned back against the crystal wall, feeling the heat seep into him. He studied her face in the glowing light. There was beauty there, sharp and otherworldly, but also pain. Her eyes held old shadows, scars carved deep inside. Her soul. He realized then that she did not save him out of kindness. She saved him because she needed something, and whatever that was, it would not be simple. When he closed his eyes for a moment, he felt her watching him. Her gaze was sharp, not gentle, as if she was waiting for him to make a mistake. Every move she made was careful, precise, as if hiding secrets behind each step. The human shivered, not from cold, but from the unknown. He knew this was only the beginning. A dangerous bargain had been struck, one he did not yet understand. And in the silence of the cave, he wondered what price his survival would truly cost. The human slept, but his sleep was not deep. His body was weak, yet his mind refused to rest fully. Even in warmth, he felt the weight of danger around him. The cave was safe from the storm, but it was not safe from her. He could sense her presence. Even with his eyes closed, the alien woman moved silently like a shadow made of light. At first, he thought she had left him alone, but then he felt the soft vibration of her steps, light against the stone floor. He opened his eyes just a little, pretending to still be asleep. There she was, sitting across from him, her glowing patterns shifting slowly across her skin. The markings pulsed like living rivers of light, brightening and dimming with each of her breaths. Her eyes were fixed on him, not with curiosity but with something deeper, something sharp. The human's heart raced. He wondered if she was deciding whether to kill him now. He wondered if she had saved him only to watch him die later. Her expression was unreadable, calm and cold, yet her stare was heavy. Pressing on him like the storm outside, he forced his body to remain still, though every muscle wanted to flinch. Time stretched in that silence. The only sound was the bubbling of the hot springs and the faint crackle of crystal veins shifting. Inside the walls, finally she stood and walked closer, her steps measured, her gaze never leaving him. She leaned over, her glowing hair falling across her shoulder like silver threads. Her face came close to his, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. For a moment he thought she was going to touch him, maybe even strike him, but she did not. She only whispered words in her own language, a tongue he did not understand. Her voice was low, almost mournful, carrying weight like a prayer or a curse. Then she straightened, her expression tightening again. She returned to her place, still watching him, still waiting. The human closed his eyes fully now, but his heart would not calm. He knew he was under her gaze, and that gaze was as sharp as any blade. When he woke again, the crystals showed a new color, a soft morning glow deep within their veins. The alien woman was still there, sitting perfectly still, as if she had not moved for hours. He rose slowly, his body stiff but alive. Her eyes flicked to him immediately, unblinking. "You live," she said, her tone flat, neither pleased nor surprised. "Yes," he answered softly. "Thanks to you." Her face did not change. Instead, she stood and walked to the far wall. There, etched into the stone, were markings, strange symbols and carved images. The human approached slowly, curiosity burning in him. The carvings looked old, worn by time, yet still alive with detail. They told stories, battles, fires, and shadows of creatures both human and alien. He reached out to trace one with his fingers, but before he could touch it, her hand snapped forward, grabbing his wrist. Her grip was strong, far stronger than he expected. Her glowing patterns flared, and her eyes filled with a warning. "Do not," she whispered, her voice sharp like a knife. The human froze, shocked by the sudden intensity. "Why not?" he asked quietly, his voice shaking but steady. Her expression darkened, and for the first time he saw something in her eyes. Fear. "These walls are not for you," she said. "They are memories you cannot bear." She released his wrist slowly, her glowing hand lingering in the air. He stepped back, his heart still racing, but his curiosity grew even stronger. He wanted to know what secrets she was hiding. He wanted to know why she had saved him if she carried so much hatred in her heart. But he also knew pushing her now could mean death. So he stayed, silent, watching her as she turned away. She sat again near the hot spring, her gaze fixed on the water. The steam curled around her, softening her sharp features, but not her eyes. The human sat far from her, but he felt her presence like a weight pressing against him. He tried to look relaxed, to hide his thoughts, but he could not stop wondering what her whispers had meant. Why did she watch him so closely? Why did she not let him touch the walls? What was she protecting, herself or him? As the crystals glowed brighter, the cave filled with an uneasy light. The human realized this was not just a shelter, it was something more. Something sacred. Something dangerous. And he was not just a guest here. He was an intruder. The alien woman knew it, and deep down, he feared she might never forgive him for being alive in her world. Still, when his eyes met hers again, there was no cruelty there, only silence, heavy and unbroken. He realized then that this woman was not simply his savior. She was his watcher, his judge, maybe even his executioner, and until he proved himself, every breath he took in her presence was borrowed. The human could not shake the image of the carvings on the wall. Strange symbols danced in his mind, the figures of battles and fires carved with hands long gone. He wanted to ask questions. He wanted to demand answers. But every time he looked at the alien woman, sitting in silence with her glowing eyes, the words froze in his throat. Still, the questions burned too hot to keep hidden. He rose slowly and walked closer to the wall again. The carvings seemed older than the cave itself, covered in cracks, yet still alive with meaning. He saw shapes of men and women, their faces sharp and cruel. He saw alien figures kneeling before them, chains carved into the stone. The sight sent a chill through him, a weight heavier than the storm outside. He reached forward, unable to resist. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. "I told you not to," she said, standing so quickly that the steam swirled around her. Her glowing patterns flared brighter, lines of light racing across her arms and face. The human turned, startled by the sudden anger in her tone. "I only wanted to understand," he said, his voice low. Her eyes narrowed, and for the first time, he saw something more than coldness. He saw fear. "You cannot understand," she whispered, her words trembling for just a breath. "These are not stories, human, they are wounds." She stepped closer, her presence heavy, her shadow falling over him. He did not move, he only stood still, letting her approach. "Why help me then?" he asked quietly. "If I am part of those wounds." Her jaw tightened and her gaze turned away. For a long silence she did not answer. The cave filled only with the sound of bubbling springs and the faint crack of shifting crystals. Finally she spoke, her voice rough, as if each word cost her strength. "Because I could not leave you to die even though I should have." Her words struck him harder than the cold ever had. He stared, confused and guilty all at once. She walked to the wall and touched one of the carvings gently. The light from her hand made the stone glow, bringing the ancient story alive. "Long ago," she said, her voice distant, "humans came here, not like you, not lost and broken, but strong, with ships and weapons." Her fingers traced the image of chains. "They took my people, they burned our homes, they called it conquest. We called it the day the stars went dark." The human felt his stomach twist. He had not been part of that. But he carried their face, their blood, their name. "I'm sorry," he whispered, though he knew it was not enough. Her eyes turned to him, sharp and bitter. "Sorry does not bring back the dead," she said, her voice like fire hidden under ice. He lowered his head, ashamed. "Then why?" he asked again, his voice trembling. "Why pull me from the snow? Why give me drink? Why let me live?" Her glowing patterns dimmed, her face softening for only a heartbeat. "Because," she whispered, "I could not let another die in front of me, even if it was a human." Her hand dropped from the wall, her shoulders heavy as if the memories pressed down like stone. The human wanted to reach out to offer comfort, but he knew his touch would not be welcome. He stayed still, watching her battle with ghosts he could not see. The cave felt different now. It was not just warmth and shelter, it was a tomb of memory. Every crystal, every carving, carried sorrow, and the woman who saved him carried that sorrow like a shield. He realized she had not saved him to be kind. She had saved him because she could not bear to be the same as those who destroyed her. He spoke softly, carefully. "If you cannot forgive, I understand. But let me prove I'm not like them." Her head turned sharply, her glowing eyes narrowing. "You cannot change what was done," she said. "No," he answered. "But I can change what I do now." His words hung in the air, fragile but unbroken. For the first time, she did not reply. Instead, she sat near the steaming pool, staring into the water as if it held answers. Her silence was not cold this time. It was heavy with thought. The human sat too, across from her, the steam rising between them like a veil. He knew he had only taken the first step into her world, and he knew it would take more than words to survive here. That night when the crystals dimmed again, he lay awake. He felt her watching still, but there was something different in her gaze now. Not just judgment, not just suspicion, but a spark of something else. Conflict. Maybe even hope. He closed his eyes, knowing tomorrow would bring another test. The secrets of the cave were not all revealed, and the alien woman's heart was a mystery he was only beginning to touch. The warmth of the cave had kept him alive, but it could not keep his thoughts still. The human sat by the steaming pool, staring into the mist that curled like smoke. He replayed her words in his mind, her sharp confession, her grief, her warning. She had saved him, but not out of mercy, not out of trust. Something else tied her decision, and he wanted to know what it was. The alien woman sat across from him, her glowing lines dim in the soft light. She had not spoken since she told him of the past. Her silence was heavy, but not empty. It was the silence of someone waiting for the right moment. The human finally broke it, his voice low, careful. "What do you want from me?" Her eyes lifted, glowing faintly like embers behind smoke. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she stood, her movements slow but firm. "You are alive because of me," she said, her voice carrying weight like stone. "And that life is now bound to me." He stiffened, unsure what she meant. She walked closer, her shadow long against the crystal wall, her face unreadable but her eyes sharp. "I do not give without price, human. I do not forgive debts." Her words echoed in the chamber, bouncing against the stone. The human clenched. His fists, "What debt?" he asked, though he already feared the answer. She leaned closer, her voice softer, almost a whisper. "You will stay. You will serve. You will prove you are not like the ones who burned my people." Her glowing hand lifted slightly, her lines pulsing brighter. "If you betray me, I will end you myself." The human swallowed hard, his throat dry despite the steam. Her eyes did not blink, and he knew she meant every word. He thought of Earth, of home, of faces he would never see again. His ship was gone, the storm outside endless. Even if he tried to run, he would not last a single night. This cave, this woman, this strange bargain, they were all he had left. Slowly, he nodded. "I will not betray you," he said. His voice steady, though his heart trembled. Her eyes narrowed, searching his face for cracks. Finally, she stepped back, her glowing patterns fading to a calmer light. "Then you will work," she said. "You will hunt with me. You will build. You will fight when danger comes. And if you fail, the snow will claim you." The human nodded again, but inside, unease gnawed at him. He was not a soldier, not a hunter, just a traveler. But he had no choice now. She had tied his survival to hers, and there was no path forward except through her shadow. She moved to a chest carved into the wall, pulling out tools unlike any he had seen. Blades of crystal, ropes woven from glowing fibers, hooks shaped from bone. She laid them before him, each one precise, each one sharp. "Choose," she said, "for tomorrow you will use it." The human hesitated, his hand hovering. He chose a short blade, its edge shimmering with faint light. It felt heavy yet balanced, like it had waited for his hand. She watched him with unreadable eyes, then nodded once. "You may have strength," she whispered, "but strength is nothing without will." He met her gaze, refusing to look away. "I have will," he answered. Her lips curved slightly, not a smile but something close. "Then perhaps you will live longer than I thought," she said. That night, when the crystals dimmed and the cave grew darker, he lay on the stone floor, the blade resting beside him. Sleep came slowly, every sound pulling his eyes open again. He saw her still awake, sitting near the carvings. Her face softened in the shadows, her eyes lost in memories. For a moment he thought he saw sorrow break through her armor. He wondered what kind of life she had lost, what family had been taken from her, what future burned away. And though she had spoken of bargains and debts, he felt something else beneath her words. Not just anger, not just vengeance, but a loneliness too deep for him to name. He turned his eyes away, letting the steam hide his face. Tomorrow would bring new trials. He knew that. But tonight, he thought of her whisper again. For a warm drink, I'll take care of you, human. The meaning twisted in his heart. It was no longer just survival. It was the beginning of something heavier, something neither of them yet understood. And as he drifted into uneasy sleep, he realized that her offer was not simple. It was a chain binding them together, one human, one alien, trapped in the frozen world with only each other to trust, or to destroy. The morning came slowly inside the cave. The crystals along the walls glowed brighter, filling the chamber with pale blue light. The human stirred from uneasy dreams, his hand still resting on the crystal blade she had given him. He blinked against the steam rising from the hot springs, his body sore but alive. Across the chamber, the alien woman was already awake, her movements sharp and silent. She tied a cord of glowing fiber across her shoulder, strapping tools and weapons to her body. When she looked at him, her eyes carried no warmth, only expectation. Up, she said simply, her voice flat but heavy. He rose quickly, though his legs trembled. The blade felt strange in his grip, heavier than before. She stepped closer, adjusting the weapon in his hand with a practiced motion. Hold it like this or you'll lose your fingers, she warned. Her touch was brief yet strong, her glowing lines pulsing faintly as if reacting to him. Then she turned and walked toward the exit of the cave. Follow, human, she ordered. Outside, the storm had calmed, though the world was still white and endless. The snow crunched under his boots, each step a battle against the cold. The alien woman moved easily, as if the frozen land belonged to her alone. He struggled to keep up, his breath turning to ice in the air, but he refused to fall behind, not when she watched his every move. They walked for hours until the cliffs opened into a valley filled with jagged stones and deep cracks. The silence here was worse than the storm. It was too still, too quiet. She lifted her hand, signaling him to stop. Her glowing eyes scanned the rocks, her body tense. He followed her gaze and saw shadows moving between the stones. At first he thought it was the wind, but then he heard it. The low growl of predators from the cracks crawled creatures unlike anything he had seen, their bodies long and twisted, their hides covered in frozen spikes. Their eyes glowed red, hungry and merciless. The human gripped his blade tighter, fear crawling through his chest. He glanced at her expecting fear, but her face was calm, sharp, ready. They hunt in packs, she said softly. Stay close, or you'll be meat before nightfall. The creatures spread, circling them, their growls echoing through the valley. The human's throat went dry, his heart pounding in his ears. He tried to steady his blade, though his hands shook. One of the beasts lunged forward, teeth flashing like shards of ice. The alien woman moved like lightning. Her crystal spear struck the creature in its side, glowing patterns flaring bright as she twisted the weapon. The beast shrieked, collapsing, into the snow. Another lunged at the human, jaws snapping. He stumbled back, raising his blade just in time. The edge cut across the creature's face, not deep, but enough to make it recoil. His chest heaved, his breath sharp and frantic. She called out sharply, "Focus, human, strike with purpose, not panic." Her voice cut through his fear. Another beast came, claws swiping toward him. This time he stepped forward, not back, driving the blade into its shoulder. Hot blood spilled against the snow, steaming in the cold air. The creature thrashed, but he held on, twisting the blade, until it fell still. For the first time, he felt something surge inside him, not fear, but strength. The battle raged around them. She fought with a grace that seemed impossible, her glowing patterns flaring brighter with each strike. Every movement was precise, controlled, deadly. The human struggled, but he learned quickly, each swing more steady than the last. Together, they cut down the pack, their breaths filling the air with steam. When the last beast fell, silence returned. The valley was littered with bodies, the snow stained dark. The human collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. His blade trembled in his grip, his arms heavy with exhaustion. She stood over him, her spear dripping with blood, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. She studied him for a long moment, her glowing eyes unreadable. "You did not die," she said at last, her tone flat but carrying something faint. Approval. He laughed weakly, though it came out as a cough. Not yet, he answered. She knelt beside him, checking the cuts on his arms and face. Her glowing hands hovered close, not touching, but he felt warmth radiate from them. You fought like one who has never held a blade, she said, but you learned and you stood your ground. Her eyes lingered on him, softer than before. You may yet have use, she whispered, almost to herself. The human met her gaze, seeing something shift in her. For the first time, she did not look at him as an enemy, but as something closer to an equal. As they dragged the bodies aside and collected what could be used, he felt a strange bond forming, forged not by trust but by survival. The predators had forced them to fight as one, and in that moment, they had become more than strangers. They had become partners in the frozen wasteland. When they returned to the cave carrying meat and hides, the air between them was different. Not warm, not safe, but no longer filled only with suspicion. That night, as the crystals dimmed, he saw her glance at him more than once, her eyes no longer sharp with hatred but with thought. The human lay on the stone floor, exhausted, but he felt something new inside him. Not just gratitude, not just fear, but a seed of respect. The trial had not only tested his strength, it had tested the fragile bond between them, and though he did not know what tomorrow would bring, he knew this. Trust was being forged in blood, and once forged, it could not easily break. The days. After the battle passed slowly, the human and the alien woman worked side by side, though neither admitted they needed each other. They gathered meat from the slain beasts, stretched hides across the rocks, and kept fires alive inside the cave. The human's body grew stronger, his hands steady now with the blade she had given him, yet his thoughts never left the bargain she had made. He owed her his life, but what if his debt was more than he could ever repay? One evening the storm returned, worse than before. Winds screamed through the cliffs, shaking the walls of the cave. Snow fell so heavy it drowned the world in white. The human sat near the fire, sharpening his blade. The alien woman stood at the entrance, her glowing lines shining against the storm. Her eyes narrowed, her body tense. Something was wrong. The human followed her gaze, and then he heard it. A howl, deep and sharp, cutting through the roar of the wind. It was not the cry of beasts they had faced before. It was something larger, something older. The woman gripped her spear tightly, her patterns blazing bright. Her voice was low but steady. It has found us. The human's chest tightened. What has? Her eyes flicked to him, cold but honest. The eater of the storm, the one who hunts all that lives. The cave shook as a massive shadow moved outside. Snow and ice crashed down, dust filling the air. The ground trembled with every step of the creature. The human's heart pounded, his hand clenching the blade until his knuckles burned. The alien woman stepped forward, spear in hand. If you wish to live, you will fight beside me, she said. He nodded without hesitation. I will not run, he whispered. The beast burst through the storm, towering above the cave entrance. Its body was covered in frozen armor, jagged spikes of ice across its back. Its eyes glowed white, its breath like clouds of fire and frost. The roar shook the earth, making the crystals inside the cave tremble. The woman leapt first, her spear striking the beast's face, sparks of blue light scattering through the storm. The creature screamed, lashing out with claws the size of blades. She dodged swiftly, but the human was slower. The claw swept near him, throwing him back against the stone. Pain exploded through his ribs, but he forced himself up. He charged forward, blade raised, slashing at the beast's leg. The edge cut, deep steaming blood pouring onto the snow. The monster roared louder, the sound shaking his bones. The woman's glowing patterns flared brighter, her voice rising like thunder. Strike again, human, she shouted. Do not falter. Together they pressed the attack, blade and spear striking again and again. The beast howled, thrashing in fury. Then, in one terrible moment, it turned its full fury on her. Its massive claw came down, faster than she could move. The human saw it, his heart stopping. Without thought, he threw himself forward, slamming into her with all his strength. The claw struck him instead, ripping across his side. He fell hard into the snow, blood staining the white ground. The world spun, his vision fading, but he held on. The alien woman knelt beside him, her glowing hands pressing against the wound. Her face, once stone, was now broken with panic. "No," she whispered. "Why would you do this?" His breath was shallow, his voice weak. "Because I could not let it take you." Her eyes burned with tears that glowed in the light of her markings. "You are a fool," she said. But her voice shook with something more than anger. She rose with fury, her spear blazing with light. The beast lunged, but she met it head-on. Her strikes were faster, stronger, filled with rage and something deeper. She drove the spear through its chest, the crystal shattering into light as the beast roared its last cry. The storm howled once more, then grew still. The eater of the storm collapsed, shaking the earth as it died. The cave was silent again. The woman dropped her broken spear, rushing back to the human. He lay weak in the snow, his blood still flowing. She pressed her glowing hands harder, her voice trembling. "Do not die, human, not after this, not after you saved me." Her tears fell onto his face, warm despite the cold. With all her strength, she whispered the words she once spoke as a bargain. "For a warm drink, I'll take care of you, human." But this time her voice broke, carrying not demand, not debt, but a vow. She leaned closer, her forehead touching his. "You are no longer my prisoner, no longer my debt, you are—" She paused, her voice soft and breaking. "My family." The human's eyes filled with tears, weak but alive. He whispered back, "Then I'll live. For you." Her hands glowed brighter, the wound slowly closing under her strange power. She held him close, refusing to let him go. The storm outside faded into silence, the world wrapped in stillness. Inside the cave, two lives had been tied together forever, not by bargains, not by debts, not by survival alone, but by choice, by sacrifice, by something neither had dared to hope for. In the frozen wasteland, the human and the alien woman were no longer strangers. They were partners, they were family, and perhaps they were the beginning of a story greater than either of them could have imagined.